The Final Destination series. They're mainly horror movies with a little bit of comedy sprinkled in there. Mainly, it's been 5 movies, but now it's been 6 with the recent release Final Destination Bloodlines in May of 2025. And with that release, everyone has come and realized this franchise existed. Yeah, so it's been a while, but the franchise has now been gaining more popularity. But why is the question? Well, let's talk about it. But first, we should probably start from the beginning. The first Final Destination movie premiered in March of 2000, with director James Wan directing the movie alongside screenwriters Glenn Morgan and Jeffrey Riddick. The movie follows Alex Browning, a kid that sees a premonition for his plane to Paris, and he gets off alongside a bunch of his student companions and a teacher. And then the plane blows up and everyone dies, and you know how the story goes. The original script was supposed to be for an X-Files episode, but Jeffrey Riddick, the guy who wrote it, was determined by some other guy to turn this into a movie. And after the movie's been released, New Line Cinema, the distributor of the movie, realized, hey, we can make some money off of this, since it really kind of performed pretty well at the box office. But it wasn't given so well as reception-wise, you know? Thanks to the decent success of the first Final Destination movie, New Line Cinema ordered some more sequels. Final Destination 2 in 2003, although it made way less more money than the previous movie, it still was a good movie by critics at the time, and it was even more bloodier than expected. Final Destination 3 somehow amped up the blood even more, and although it wasn't good like the second movie, it still managed to be a pretty good box office hit. And then there was The Final Destination, aka Final Destination 4. This movie has been considered as the worst movie of the entire franchise, mainly focused on bad characters, bad writing, a weird premonition, not great deaths, and since this was 2009, it was filmed for 3D. And although this movie was 4 months away from Avatar, people didn't like the 3D, to be honest. And honestly, not the movie too. And although it was supposed to be the end of the franchise, because New Line Cinema said so, it made the most money out of this franchise so far, and they greenlit a 5th movie. So that's how we got Final Destination 5. And spoiler alert for like a, 14-year-old movie, this is actually a prequel that happens before the events of the first Final Destination movie. And although it got good reviews, barely anyone showed up, mainly because Final Destination 4, or The Final Destination, as some people say, was bad, and they didn't want to care about the 5th movie, and it did make money, but it wasn't enough, so, New Line Cinema just paused on any more installments on the movie, even if they did confirm a 6th movie. And throughout the 2010s, it has been known as the Final Destination drought, where although they were saying they might do a 6th movie, it never came to be. And as for New Line Cinema, they got merged with Warner Brothers Pictures, they started a new horror franchise with the Conjuring universe, and they made a lot of money with it. And It, the 2-part adaptation of the Stephen King movies, of course. And then in January of 2019, the impossible happened. It was announced that a 6th movie of the Final Destination movies were being in the works. Jeffrey Riddick confirmed in October of 2020 that it had been in the works prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. And then they got their directors with Zach Lipovsky and Adam Steen, and it was announced that John Watts was going to be a producer and they would help out with the story. And then in May of 2025, Final Destination 6, now titled Final Destination Bloodlines, finally released in theaters. And although it was supposed to go to HBO Max, it was thankfully given a theater release. And wow, it managed to be good. Good characters, good stuff, good deaths, a good premonition, and it wasn't filmed in 3D. Instead, it was actually filmed with IMAX, which is actually kind of good. And as for the critics, they loved the movie. And for the box office, it ended up being really, really impressive. As of the recording of this video, it ended up making $280.1 million, being the second highest grossing horror movie of 2025 so far, behind Sinners. Now, you may be wondering, how did a franchise that went from being held the worst movie of its entire franchise to being one of the best movies of its entire franchise? Well, I could have one explanation. The internet. Now, let me explain. You see, some people want to see a horror movie, either it be good or it be bad. Sometimes they want to drag some friends along with it. And sometimes the people looking for a horror movie want to look up a horror movie they never heard of, like say all of the Final Destination movies. Since we live in the era of internet everything and streaming and digital all of this, eventually Final Destination would find its audience with that, and it somehow managed to do it. Somehow, the people really liked the deaths, the premonition, and the idea of no matter what, death will always come for you. Even for me, I found out about the series when people were covering the kill counts for this franchise, especially dead meat. And then I was most interestingly something when the 6th movie was coming out around the time of one of my relatives' birthdays, aka me. But it was one of the ways that I and many other people found out about Final Destination and how it became a massive success with Final Destination Bloodlines. So, moral of the story, I don't know, the internet finds a way, I guess.